And are you welcoming Grant? Or am I?
No, you're doing it.
All right. Welcome to L&D Talk. It's Video Friday, and that means it's Funky Friday.
Awesome. Welcome,
with your host, Brent Schlenker.
Thank you very much. For those of you that don't know, if you're new to our show, that's Sam Rogers, the One Mouth Band and co-host with the dulcet sounds of grooving funky town. And ladies and gentlemen, today is Video Friday. This is L&D Talk. We do this every morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time at the Blab, theblab.im, and Monday through Friday every morning, except no Saturday and Sunday, thankfully. But this is a good time for all of us to hang out and talk learning and development, corporate training stuff. And since today is Video Friday, we have our very first special guest, Michael Kinney. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Brent. Hello,
Absolutely.
Sam.
Hello.
I was very excited when you asked to be hanging out with us. I thought, wow, we've totally hit the big time because Michael wants to be our guest. We're in.
You sound so surprised, which surprised me. I thought, oh, I better prepare myself. This is serious business. Brent's doing some serious stuff. I got to get notes. I got to study up.
Very serious
It's cash.
at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate that. I really, really do. But yeah, like I've told people before, and maybe I shouldn't let the secret out. This all started off as just an experiment to see how we can use streaming video and to just an excuse to test it out. But it's actually turned into something really useful, I think. And I'm learning a lot from everybody that hangs out with me. And it's it's become, quite a deal. And to commit to 1 hour every morning, I think that's pretty legit for our own personal development.
That's quite the commitment. No, it's a great idea. And it's, I admire your entrepreneurship to sort of jump on the technology, particularly the live streaming for learning and development. Some people wouldn't think, hey, those things would necessarily go together, but it's a nice contrast.
Yeah, well, let's start with this. Why don't you just give us a brief background, maybe introduction of yourself, sort of set the stage for us before we start talking about video and e-learning.
Okay. It was a dark and stormy night in September 21st. Not that far back. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I went to broadcasting school way back when. And when I graduated, I started directly in educational television, working at a public broadcaster here in Canada. And I started working on science documentaries, and then into more educational, teaching science to kids, and made stuff for television as well as the classroom. One of my projects in television received a few awards and a couple of Gemini nominations, which is the equivalent to Emmys in the States.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I've always loved using video to tell stories, but I thought the real power of video happens for me when you start telling stories and teaching. And that's what I love to do, and I still love to do it. So, and now we're in this great online world, and coming from television where, the equipment, the barrier to entry and the barrier to production was so great. And nowadays, look what we're doing right now.
Right.
Back in the day, if we were doing this would be a crew of like 30 people, would cost millions of dollars.
A satellite dish.
Exactly. And you would actually need a license to broadcast, right?
Right.
And now we have this technology where you can directly reach your audience with your content, and you can experiment and, like you're doing, take advantage of all this great technology. So that's that's my story, I guess.
That's awesome. And you left out one incredibly important critical detail that the chat has picked up on. You're Canadian.
Hey? What? Yes, I'm Canadian.
We have a few Canadians in the house, I think.
That makes everything so much cooler.
It totally does.
Yes.
As close as I get to Canadian is being an exceptionally extreme Rush fan.
Ooh, okay. All right.
That's as close as I get.
Okay.
I've never actually even been before, but
To Canada?
Anyways, yeah, to Canada.
It's not that far away, dude.
I know. I should go sometime.
I'm in Southern Ontario, which is across the pond, Lake Ontario from Rochester, and Niagara Falls, New York, and Detroit is not terribly far either. So
I actually used to live in Toronto myself. So
see, you pronounce it like you're not from Toronto.
An honorary.
Yes. We call it Toronto.
Yeah,
don't pronounce
exactly.
it. Really? How long were you in Toronto for?
Not long enough to pick up the accent. And also in Australia for a while and all over the place. But
wow, very cool.
He's a worldly man.
Yeah,
nice.
So video in e-learning. So we sounds like we all have a pretty strong background starting off in production of some sort somewhere, which is great. I think it'll make for a great conversation today. Let's just start with the basics. What is or why video in e-learning, and why now? Because video's been around for a long time. Why all of a sudden are we talking about it now? Why are there terms like micro video and micro learning, and why is it popping like crazy now?
Yeah, it's funny. Learning videos have been around since World War II, and some of those.
They were training films back then.
Training films in classroom. I remember all the great films we used to watch in gym class. We had to have the Birds and the Bees movie.
Right.
Oh yes,
Shell Films.
The
Did you have
parental
Red
signature
Asphalt
required films.
Yeah.
Oh, Blood on the Highway. Red Asphalt.
Yeah.
Was the
Yeah.
other driving one.
Oh yeah, before driver's ed.
Yeah.
That'll keep those
good times.
Yeah, very good times.
But I think now, going to your question, I think it's become such a thing now because of the first of all, the means of production, the barrier to production, they've dropped drastically. And that was kind of like the mid 90s. Digital video came in, and so that was a big thing. But you always had that problem of distribution. It's great. I got to make my digital video, and now I'll burn all my DVDs or copy my VHS tapes, and I'll mail them out to people or hand them out. And so when YouTube came along, and even a little bit before that, when online distribution came along, now you had access. You not only had the means of production, now you have access. And I think now more and more people are realizing, particularly now with online content, there's so much of it, and there's the noise floor is going up, that people are realizing that in order to get attention from their audience, and this happens with learning as well, because you're competing with all that other stuff on YouTube, people have to up their game, and video is a great way to get attention and to engage an audience, never mind to teach them something. So I think people are sort of grabbing onto that. However, I think the learning, the L&D, and I think the educational space in general has been kind of slow in picking it up. And I have some thoughts on why that is, but yeah, so that's what I think is going on.
So Sam, how about you? What do you think?
Well, speaking to the main advantage for us as e-learning developers with using online video as opposed to like the old training library of all the DVDs and all the VHSs and everything, is what we can know about how people are interacting with things, and creating an interactivity layer, being able, of course, to have everything ubiquitous across totally different devices that didn't exist previously. It's not just movie screen, it's not just television screen, it's every screen everywhere. But being able to, from a metrics perspective, from an analytics perspective, know how people are engaging and tailor our content to reinforce what we're aiming for, not necessarily just entertainment and eyeballs. Although, as Michael mentions, that's critical. You have to have that or you don't have anyone. But really focusing on what it is that we're trying to do and being able to measure that against how people have interacted with the content.
So yeah, I totally agree. And I think I have not started publicizing it or pushing it out via social media, but I posted a blog post yesterday kind of talking to exactly that there isn't really, we tend to in our industry talk about there's this one new thing or we pigeonhole the conversations like kind of like we're doing now around video. But really the thing that it's all of those things put together, right? That gives us this ability to do things differently than we've ever done them before. And it's all of this stuff that's really disrupting what it is that we do. It's the ability to, it's not just video and being able to publish it on the web. It's that plus super easy to produce it. You get data back from users. You can see who's been using it. People can respond and collaborate on what you posted. And, there's just so many aspects to what technology has done that, it's this nice collection. But I think the reason why I like video is that I think all of that stuff nowadays revolves around video. Like video is in the center, and then all those other technologies just kind of wrap around it and make it more effective than it's ever been. Michael, why don't you tell me what has held us back, if you have any thoughts on that as an industry?
Well, it's interesting. I've worked in the broadcast space where the objectives are slightly different and the metrics are slightly different for the content that you're making. There's a different measuring stick. And I've worked purely with educators creating video content for the classroom. And what I run up against in that time was, first of all, video. When I came over working with educators, he's from television. That's video. That's kind of informal learning. It was sort of this frill, this kind of nice to have fun thing, but wasn't really taken seriously. And they at that time, kids were being bombarded with all kinds of other content outside the classroom. It was getting increasingly harder to keep their attention. And I said, well, you have to engage them. You have to get their attention. If you don't have their attention, you can forget everything that follows. And the great thing about video is video isn't for everything. What I found in my experience is that video is very good at capturing attention, giving your content an emotional angle, and inspiring people to want to take it further, to want to dig in to the details which are in the text or in other forms of media. But I found that video was a great way just to sort of prime people to want to learn. And I just found when the resistance was that it wasn't really serious. And the other thing too is I see in the chat people talking about the entertainment factor. That, if it's entertaining, then it's not formal, so then it's not serious, and then you're not really learning. And you guys know probably as much as I do when you look at the research in terms of e-learning and engaging people, we always seem to be working against ourselves, right? When we say, no, it can't be fun, it can't be entertaining, watch the humor, but yet you look at the research and they say, well, you need to be, it has to be informal, you got to be conversational. You have to be, the guide on the side, and you have these two things, and we kind of do this constantly. And then what happens?
We're our own worst enemy.
And then what happens is people get frustrated. They go, forget it. This video thing, this fad. And then 5 years later, we start talking about it again.
Yeah, it pops back up again. What about you, Sam? What other barriers? Why don't we do this more? Why is this such a
Well, I think there's just a lot of fear and apprehension around the skill set that's required for video. I mean, even though the production threshold, the money that it costs to get in the game and do stuff is like, you know, a smartphone these days, the creative element of just just knowing like how to be on camera, or how not to be on camera, coaching people for a camera, dealing with, you know, great, I got this nice expensive microphone, but like, how does the signal flow route into the board, route into the thing? Like, these are very common mistakes and easy mistakes for people to make. And it's easy to get overwhelmed by all the things that you don't know. But one of the things that I, you know, teaching at the upcoming ATD or all the other conferences is really putting video within reach, leveraging the skills that we have as instructional designers, as people that are creating learning and development content in any capacity. A lot of the same skills actually go straight over to video, and decreasing that fear that is a huge barrier.
Video is a language. You know, it really is. And it has parts of the language and techniques and conventions that you use in order to, you know, make a point. And it's exactly right. We have all this access to the technology, but we lack the craft.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
but
well,
I
like
think
anything else, right? It's not the tool that makes that gives it the value. It's the creativity, and it's what you put into it. And it's not the high amount of quality. It's not the super tech. It's how creative can you be and how thoughtful can you be using the constraints of the medium.
I've worked on every conceivable scale in production. I've worked on multi-million-dollar productions, all the way down to run and gun guerrilla filmmaking, which I did for years, and I loved it. And a show I did was me with my PD-150. This was back in like 2004, and shooting with available light. Had professional actors, and we're running to these locations and we're shooting a drama, and I'm cutting it together on my laptop on Final Cut Pro. And the show was, ratings wise, was measuring up to be, I think it was the last time I saw it was top 10 youth shows. It was number 7 in Canada. People were like, this was amazing. How much you made this? How much was this? And it's like, really? Like 2 people, and what? And it just blew their mind. Yeah. Because you know where to take the resources you have, you know where to put them to get the most return, right? And that's what takes the craft and the experience to learn.
Well, I think, because I've been on this video bandwagon for a long time, but to Sam's point, I think I have sort of taken for granted my years of experience, because I was in broadcast TV before I got into e-learning too. So to me, it just all made perfect sense. Why don't we use video more often? And I'll make 2 quick points here. I think unfortunately, as we started transitioning from old school instructional design and moving into this e-learning play, when we started looking at video, I think people were interpreting our passion for video as, all of these guys, gals, are pushing video, but it doesn't have any interactivity and it's just a video, and it's not, how can a video actually be learning? Because it's not engaging and it's not interactive and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, whoa, time out. It's like, this is part of the conversation of our toolbox has expanded significantly over the last 20 years. And it's not a matter of just pick one tool and damn all the others. It's all of these tools have a particular place within a spectrum of one solution,
Exactly.
And you can start with one and then add another, or, however you want to approach it. But it's not just, hey, we've got a training problem and we know we can solve it with technology. Let's choose. Do we want e-learning? Do we want to create an interactive thing? No, we want to do video. Let's just do video. Okay, let's do video. It's not like that. But I think some people interpret maybe our passion or our interest in putting it into the e-learning bucket as such.
Yeah, and you don't. I mean, from my experience, you don't. I mean, you're working in a. I worked in television, so it's video. Some people work in audio. Some people work in interactive. You don't start with the tool, right? You start with the task and the objective, and go, okay, how's the best way to achieve this objective? If I had my choice of anything, you know, that's how I usually start a project. If this was the perfect world, what would I use? And then you figure that out, and you start to see what's really important. And then you start to cut back and go, well, here's what I can do. Okay, so I can do this much, so I'll use that and apply that to the task. And I think too many people get caught up with the tools, and they go for the tools first. And it's hard. I mean, I love tech too. I love all this stuff. I got all kinds of cameras, and it's, you know, you get a bit of a tech fetish, but at a certain point, you know, you got to stop and go, okay, what am I trying to do here? And sort of clear your head. And then you start to find the tools that are going to be the most effective.
And if I could jump in on that too, just defining what it is that we're talking about here with video, the fact that we have faces on camera, that we're talking about like dramatic kind of deliveries of scenario-driven stuff, like that's one kind of video that's appropriate for e-learning. But if you're not comfortable on camera, don't be on camera. Nobody says you have to be on camera. Like, even slides over a PowerPoint is actually e-learning video, and sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, I used to shoot a lot of science stuff. I did science documentaries, and a lot of the researchers I worked with didn't want to show their faces. So, you know, you use hands doing stuff. Because a lot of times, and here's another thing, I know I'm kind of jumping around, but one of my pet peeves when I see any kind of instructional video, whether it be formal L&D or on YouTube, is the lack of close-ups. Not showing, that's the beauty of video. You can take people, you can take them wide to the universe, you can take them close into a molecule, you can take them all kinds of places. But, you know, if you're focusing on the content and the task at hand, all you need to see are hands. You don't need to see faces. You know, I see a lot of stuff online, just tabletop stuff with hands, and it's quite effective.
Oh, yeah.
There's a scale and a range that you can do in terms of the production.
Right. I always talk about it as there's video, the craft, and then there's video, the file format. Right.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of different ways you can utilize the file format without even using a camera. You can export it from PowerPoint, right, Sam? I mean, just, you know, export as video. You know, you can, just about every tool these days has some sort of capability of exporting it as a video file. And, you know, there's a lot of options around utilizing that format as a great way to deliver all sorts of different types of content. That I think that's also the place where people get hung up. They immediately have a preconceived notion about what video production is, what the final product should be. And a lot of times they just assume or think, oh, we got to get actors, we need perfect lighting, we need $1 million cameras, and oh, we don't have the talent, we don't have the resources, and we got to outsource it. And it's just going to be this crazy little thing when you could just take your iPhone and point it at a whiteboard and just start drawing and talking. And at least that's a start, right? It's not super high quality, but it's easy. And it's a way for you to, and I always drive this point home, or I try to, is provide business value, right? When the business has a need trumps quality. If the faster you can get that problem solved, the sooner, you know, that the business is happy and, you know, things start running again. And I'll go off on a tangent too, Michael. And Paul was nice enough to point out that tangents are a dime a dozen around here, so don't feel bad. But yeah, I can't remember what day it was. I guess it was Wednesday. Paul was sharing a story that he was right in the middle of, and I actually crafted my blog post around this experience that we all had together. And when I reflected on it, it just really got me thinking about, my God, how things have changed in our industry. And he was able to do exactly what we're talking about. There was this level of utilizing technology to see a problem happening, not sitting back and you know, going, that's not my responsibility because we're the training department, and you don't need to create training to solve that problem. No, he went right out, using the skills that he has as a training professional and created a solution that solved a business problem and literally was able to do it. And I used this in the blog, and Paul, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard you say 3 hours before the actual official communication or solution was sent out. I believe was what I heard and cued in on, but I can change that if I'm wrong. But you know, that's the kind of stuff that really gets me jazzed about it. And when I hear real life stories of people finally taking advantage of this, that's what it makes me feel like, okay, I've been on this kick for a long time, and it feels like it's never going to get into, you know, the work that we do. But then to hear those kind of case studies is very confirming.
Well, it's like I said before, we fight against ourselves. And
yeah.
When I worked with educators, I would have to explain. I said, listen, the students, they've got access to they're watching movies, they're watching TV shows, they're watching narratives, they're engaged by those things.
Yep.
And they're becoming used to that. And then when they step into this environment, all of a sudden it's, you know, it's like, what is this? This is so boring. And as much as you say, no, it's not, or this is important, and you know, you got to have all your fiber, can't have all just candy. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. And I think what I tried to do a lot of the times in my educational content was to bring those elements of storytelling, of narrative, into the educational content. Because when you sort of research and look at anything, there is a narrative there. I was on a chat yesterday, and people were talking about social media, and they were saying, well, what if my industry is boring? What kind of content? I can't tell any stories. There's always a story. There's reasons for things. It's cause and effect. That's a narrative. It doesn't have to be a Hollywood screenplay. It can be a simple, you know, mystery. Right. I mean, that's how I made my money. Literally was in my show. It was a mystery every week. Why did this happen? And in answering that question, you cover all that information that you need to hit, but it's in this narrative form. So when people watch it, they don't think they're learning. They're like, wow, this is very interesting. And at the end of it, wow, I learned something, and it, you know, didn't feel like learning. And I think that's the magic.
Yeah, it didn't feel like learning.
Yeah.
It's a great, like, that's a great thing to aim for.
Yeah.
And that video or not video, like feeling like learning, like doesn't have a good connotation.
Yeah.
You know, we go back to the old school settings, you know, of, you know, be quiet, do your homework, all that kind of stuff.
As soon as you say you're going to learn something, even if you're writing, if you look at copywriters in marketing, don't ever say in this video you're going to learn. Oh, people just go learn school. Yeah. And they go into the school mode, right?
Yeah, we learned, at least I like to think we learned it a long time ago in the early days, right? That was always slide 1 or page 1 of the student teacher guide was, in this session you will learn blah blah blah. And we actually had classes in graduate school on how to write an effective objective. And I remember thinking that it felt kind of ludicrous and weird, but I didn't know any better. So I thought, wow, these people obviously know something I don't know. So yeah, let's learn how to write better objectives. But you're right. I mean, you don't like turn on the TV and, you know, the news doesn't come on and say, what we're going to show you today is, they'll tease something, which is pretty effective, right? They'll say, hey, coming up, we're going to maybe show you something about this.
Right.
You know? But I mean, it's a whole different vibe. It's in that sort of pulling on the heartstrings, and they're working with the psychology of the medium and the emotions and adding that stuff. And the funny thing is, in our industry, we tend to suck all the fun and emotions right out of the content, you know, for one reason or another, whether it's compliance or legal issues or, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Because then it's not serious. It's not formal.
Right.
I was looking at the chat, and someone was talking about, don't emulate Hollywood. When I was talking about the storytelling, you don't have to be clever. You don't need to be clever. You just have to sort of follow the trail, follow the breadcrumbs. And as you're following, you bring along the learner and show them. You don't need to be crazy. I've seen some things really fall flat who've tried to have actors with dramatic vignettes, and it was just so cheese.
Oh yeah.
Totally over.
But especially, so it's sexual harassment training these days, right? That's just horrible. The acting is horrible. The scripting is horrible. The storylines are horrible because somebody had to have 8,000 people review the script and make sure that every word was perfect first, instead of let mind go, hey, this would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and that all becomes distracting, right? Because you're looking at, wow, what are they wearing, or what did they say? And you're out of the moment. Right. And now you don't, whatever the content was, I don't know. I'm too busy looking at this guy's shirt that looks weird.
It's a Hawaiian shirt. There's nothing wrong with it. He likes to wear Hawaiian shirts sometimes. Don't make fun of him.
It's Friday. Sam, it looked like you had a story to share.
Well, yeah. Back a few points ago, I actually wanted to share a link if I could. It's like a 60-second video or something that
throw it in there.
That ATD just made live. This was shot on my cell phone at 7:45 in the morning with about 30 to 45 minutes of production time, and in front of a very cheap green screen with lights from Home Depot, and the headphones that are around my neck are the microphone.
Ah, cool. Nice job. I haven't clicked play yet. Go ahead and throw the link in the chat also, please.
Sure.
Because the people watching the recording, they're not going to see this.
Okay. So there it is. And it's not ideal. It's not perfect. If you look very carefully, I'm sure Michael will see there's a little green outline around my ear. And, to get that line out would probably cost me another $1,000.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to watch it on a screen this big.
Right.
And
no, nobody's going to get. Actually, most 99.9% of people are going to look at that and go, "Holy crap! That must have cost $10,000 to produce. That's epic."
Yeah, it took a total of like an hour, maybe. I got, read through on my second take, so there's no edits to make. And then just take some screenshots from the website and throw it on behind me. Done.
Yeah. And it's simple. And it's funny. You mentioned perfect. And what's perfect? What does that even mean?
Right.
Does it serve the purpose? Is it clear? Am I listening to what you're saying, your message, and do I get the information? Right. That's what's really important. Everything else is kind of a sliding scale depending on your budget. Right.
Yep.
Because at a certain point, you hit a point of diminishing returns.
Yeah, we should know that better than most, right? Because back to the whole idea of objectives, that's what you're talking about, right? What's the goal? What's the objective? What is it that we're trying to do? And what is the most frictionless way for us to get to that goal? And sometimes it doesn't have to be so complicated.
Well, it's interesting, Brent, because when I made that little promo yesterday that I put on Twitter.
Yeah, that was awesome, by the way. Thank you.
Like, oh, wow, that's great. I'm like, thanks. That was my phone lighting nearby window. It was very simple, but the information was there. The delivery was just, here it is. Here's the stuff. Thank you very much. And, you're done. So very much it's about craft, as Sam is saying with this video. It's about craft, being able to deliver that message fairly straightforward and effectively. And if people are locked into the message, they're not going to notice the little green line around, the ear or anything like that.
Exactly. That speaks to, need before quality, right? I mean, as long as the content is there and people are getting what they need from it, you're right. The green line doesn't matter. If maybe the transition from one slide in the background didn't quite look as cool as you wanted it to, it doesn't really matter.
And the audio quality on this, it's literally like the microphone in the headphones. Like, I have nicer microphones. I kind of wanted to do this as an experiment, as an example that I can show folks. Like, it really wasn't that much. I have access to more stuff. This was just fast, and that's what I needed.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, I do have another presentation to go off to at the top of the hour.
That's
so
right.
I'm going to go get my Adobe Connect session thing happening.
Okay.
But it's been great having you here, Michael.
Oh, thank you, Sam.
Yeah, great to meet you. And
same here.
have fun for the rest of the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Sam. We'll
Sam.
see you next Friday.
All right.
Awesome. And so we are kind of getting close to the 9 o'clock hour, and I try my best for us to end on time. I don't actually land on the mark, but what else in the chat do you guys want to hear? Does anybody have any specific questions for Michael while he's here? I know he's going to be joining us every day from now on anyway, so you can always ask him later.
Every Friday. I can just, as people are kind of formulating their questions, just sort of a quick roundup of kind of the stuff I've learned about learning videos and making those kinds of videos. We touched on a lot of the points here already, but I really believe that knowing what it is, like you said, objectives, knowing what it is you're trying to teach and knowing it very well. A lot of people are kind of vague in the objective, and it shows because they spend a lot of time and they waste a lot of time making a video that doesn't really go anywhere and doesn't deliver. And they become frustrated and they keep having to revise it. So it's really important to really know what it is you're trying to teach. And when I did educational videos, I'd actually do the thing that I was teaching, like do it. And so that I would know the steps, but I would also pick up the little details, those little gotchas that make such a difference when you're trying to present that to somebody. And they love, the audience loves you for that insider information. So, do the thing.
The audience loves it when you respect their time too. If and that goes to the leaving the objectives out at the beginning, figure out a creative way to tell people what they're going to be learning next, and draw them in and do something, other than the standard blah, 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 before you actually get to the meat of it. This is the crazy thing. And here's another tangent. It's like presentations, I feel, often fall for this thing. It's like people that are new to it feel like, oh, I got to build up and build up and build up. And then at the very end is going to be the big reveal and this big exciting thing. And you're forcing people to sit through a lot of stuff they don't really care about. They're waiting and waiting and waiting. And they're either going to be great and they're going to love it and be glad they stayed, or more often than not, it's really, I waited all the way around here for you to say that when you could have said that right at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
So my presentations of late, I often tell people this could be a really fast session for you. I'm going to hit all the really cool stuff that I'm going to say. Here's all the bullets. If you want to know how I reached those conclusions and how we got there, that's going to take a few more minutes. So that's what the rest of the presentation is. But if that's the only piece you wanted, there you have it.
Yeah. It's the classic inverted pyramid from newspaper writing, where you start with the most important stuff first.
Oh, exactly.
And then you sort of add the detail as you move down the pyramid, right?
Yep. So
that it gets people's attention, and they can kind of drop out and still get the gist of what it is you're trying to deliver.
Yeah, that's it. Let me scroll through real quick. I know we're getting really close to the deadline, but I think somebody mentioned that there's some questions in here. Just want to make sure we hit at least one and pretend like I know what I'm doing as far as managing this. Joseph, where was your question? So in video, is entertainment and education a fine balance, or can both be dialed up? Let's start there.
I once, when I worked on a show, I wrote a script and people were saying there's humor in this. And my boss literally brought me into the office and said, are you writing jokes into this script? I heard there's humor. Can't have any of that. I said, no, I don't write jokes. Well, why is it people saying it's funny? I said, I don't know. I think it's because I'm being straightforward in what I'm talking about, and I'm being honest about it. And a lot of times when you're honest and straightforward about the information, those natural sort of grace notes of humor just come out.
Yeah.
I don't try to be funny. I try to be straightforward and honest and vivid, particularly with video, to show people things. And inevitably, like everyday observations can be funny. Those things just sort of come out naturally. So, I mean, that's the approach. I don't know if you could try to dial things up, but usually when you try to dial it up, that's when things fall off the rails.
Yeah, and especially for folks in our industry that aren't professionals at it, right? We're not trained in all of this stuff. Most of us aren't trained programmers, but yet we learned how to program just out of necessity because we wanted to create interactive stuff. Most of us aren't graphic designers, but we learned out of necessity because we needed to be able to create some educational graphics. You know, all of this kind of stuff that we aren't, you know, we're just sort of a jack of all media traits. We always have been. And so I think the most important thing is to just make sure you just use the medium, in this case, video, and just be very clear. Because, you know, don't be tricky. Don't try to be too creative. Just, you know, initially, like I've always said, to add the business value, just make sure you're very clear in the message that you're trying to deliver and use the medium to deliver it.
Exactly.
It can be that easy.
And your objective should be, what is the best way to use this medium to really make sure or ensure that people understand what it is I'm trying to tell them? And you'll find that when you try to do that, that's when you find all those moments. So I wouldn't try to be funny or clever. Just try to be clear, as we've said, and really make sure people understand what it is you're trying to deliver.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Hey, listen, tell everybody where they can find you. If they want some videos made, or if they want to learn from you, or continue chatting with you, where can they find you?
Well, it's funny. I'm in the midst of launching a site right now. But if you're interested in video, video for learning, video for, you know, just about anything, follow me on Twitter. At Michael Kinney is the best thing. I'm on Twitter all the time, so I'm always updating, and that's the best way to contact me. And if you want to interact as well. And
so just so you know, people can see you as Brainwave Media.
I know.
Is that okay too, or?
Yeah, I did some rebranding, and I've been talking with Blab about switching my username, but right now it's not possible.
Yeah, somebody else was running into that yesterday. I think Ajay has that same issue right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know, you know, when I'm doing a Blab, I'll put it on Twitter. I put everything on Twitter. And then once, you know, this is resolved with Blab, hopefully, who knows? Hopefully it'll switch it up. But Twitter is the best way right now to contact me. And if they want to contact me, and if you want to interact with my content, follow me on Twitter.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Brent, it was so great. It's funny, you know, we started off so loose, and then everything kind of got intense, and all this great content, and it was great.
Because we all love what we do. That's the
the passion started to come out. It was great.
Yeah, it's fun. So you're going to come back and hang out with us more often, right?
Well, if you'll have me, sure.
Absolutely. Come on.
I don't know if the Chad wants to give me some of those claps, those hands.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
The hands, and I'll be back.
Just some props. Come on, everybody.
Come on,
let's give Michael some props.
Good stuff. Yeah, for sure, Brent. For sure, I'll come back.
Awesome. All right. And thanks to the live chat. You guys are always awesome hanging out with me. You guys are great.
Thank you for the great questions.
Great part of the conversation. So again, this is L&D Talk, 8:00 Pacific time. I believe that's 4:00 GMT for those of you in the UK. We sometimes get some UK folks hanging out. And Monday through Friday. Today's Video Friday, but we take on a different topic every morning. So if you feel like hanging out, I'll throw up a couple commercials just to let people know as you're finishing up watching this video. Our Litmus is accompanied by Calidus Cloud, and Calidus Cloud has a big conference coming up in May called C3. It's Calidus Cloud Connections. And in Vegas at the beautiful Wynn, and it's a beautiful, beautiful location. Great conference, great content, 3 learning tracks. You can go hit up and learn more about it at litmus.com/C3. Of course, we're going to be at ATD. Also, I believe Sam's going to be at ATD. I believe some of our chat room is going to be at ATD. Lots of people end up showing up at ATD in Denver. So that's always a good time as well. So if you want to read my blog, I'm at litmus.com/blog. And I'll be promoting a blog that I pushed out last night later today, but it talks a little bit about some of the things that we were talking about today, takes it in a little bit of a different direction. But I'd love to get some feedback. I wrote it. It's long. I don't normally write long blogs, but it's a little bit longer than normally write, and I kind of whipped it out really fast. So I'm sure there's lots of grammatical errors, but I hope I got my point across. So it'd be good to get some feedback. But anyways, it's been a great Video Friday, Michael. Again, thank you very much. Thank you to Sam for being my co-host who had to bug out early for a meeting. And chat room, you're awesome. We will see you all Monday morning. Everybody have a great weekend.
Yeah, have a great weekend.